All right, so we're going to get started here because we got a bunch of remote people that are online. I think this is probably the most participants we've had in an event ever in terms of the monthly meetings. So thank you for joining us. And we have about 10 or 12 people on remotely. There's probably about 35 people in this room. So, you know, that's awesome. I'd like to introduce Matt Iskander. He's the president of MR Controls. So it's a local Calgary company here that builds software to monitor and alarm and control your industrial assets. So I won't talk too much about the company, but I've known Matt for a couple of years. He was one of the founders, one of the 8 original founders of Alberta IoT. He's been kind of instrumental in helping get us organized and kind of proliferating the vision of Alberta IoT and bringing us all together. He's helping with the events committee, yeah, just all around, a good business guy, someone to know, and I think one of the cornerstones of doing some collaborative projects because his software can bring a lot of us together. So, I don't know what else you want to say about yourself and your company. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background and your company before jumping right in?
Good. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so I guess I'm very, very happy to see so many faces here. And one of the things that is unique about what I see here is that there's a lot of businesses behind this event. About 5-6 years ago, I initiated IEEE Control Systems for Southern Alberta. We started from 5 people, and now there are about 1,000 people in Southern Alberta that are part of that organization. That's a completely technical organization. It's much bigger than this, but I see much more value on what I see here and the future of Alberta IoT, because there are businesses and there are CEOs, CTOs, managers, a lot of technical people that want this thing to work. And I think we're just going to see a rapid expansion, especially with the addition of Brenda. I think this last just a month that you have joined us, right? So it's very nice to see that. The board meets every month, and we've been kind of trying to figure out how we can get ourselves more visible, and I'm very happy that Brenda came on board. You know, it's one of those things that everything we're doing in our board meetings, it's turning out to be a right thing to do and putting us in the next level. So very happy to see that. In terms of myself, as Mark mentioned, I started MR Control Systems in 1999, so we've been around for a long time. And our experience is mostly around industrial monitoring control. People know it as the SCADA systems. It was almost about a year to date that I recall having conversation with Victor, one of the board members, asking him explain to me what IoT is, even though we formed the IoT. But what I found was that I've got a ton of experience with the SCADA, and there's so much overlap, and we still don't know exactly what's the difference, what's the similarity between these two technologies. And what we found was when I was we joined together with the 8 other companies to form the Alberta IoT, this was a very, very brand new journey for myself and my company on where are we heading, because we saw the challenge several years ago, and we kind of were put in a path to get where we are, but we all of a sudden came across this whole new technology called IoT, and it's just growing by just an amazing speed. Anyway, so I'll get into this. I put this PowerPoint presentation together just to give you an idea of what our experience has been and what we have learned and where this is going. And you probably will see at the end of this why I decided to get involved in the IoT associations and how we are able to bring other companies together. So my company is a Calgary-based company. We're a software company, been around over 8 years now. We started as a system integration SCADA company, purely system integration. We didn't have any software. We used other people's software. Same system integrators now using other people's companies' IoT hubs, right? We've done a lot of projects worldwide. We had at one point, we had a global master service agreement with GE Power Systems in Atlanta. So we were doing all sorts of projects all over the world, all in industrial power utility and a lot of oil and gas in Alberta. Now, we developed this platform called EventAx platform, and it took us 80 man-years of development. It was a massive development for a small company like us. We look very big, but we are not. We build a platform that it's usually built by super large companies, but we built it over 15 years. I'm just going to, before I get into the details, I want to show you what we have now. Now, think about this first, before I show this to you. This is a SCADA platform, and we are trying to relate ourselves to IoT. And I'll have a discussion on where the overlaps are and what we've done here. Now, to get the demo, just log into our demo portion of website. Okay, so this is a basically a web demo, we call it. I'll start with the smart cities part, so you get a feel for it. Now, what you see here is basically a whole bunch of sensors we're monitoring. Temperature, water meter, gas meter, solar panel, power data. The temperature one is actually a sensor, I think Techtalic help us. It's basically, we put it in our office, it's pumping data to a cloud, and we are displaying it here. I'll just show you a little bit of the things that we have done with it. So, for example, for temperature, we can look at the daily data or weekly data. I've got to zoom out a little bit. How do you zoom out on this? Anyway, I'll leave it like that. So, for example, we can look at previous weeks. We can go back to months and look at previous month data, right? Typical what people expect to see from IoT perspective. This is just for, we did it for, this is a demo for smart cities, but we also have got other kind of monitoring. So we want to monitor power, for example. So this is a single line diagram. So you've got a facility with power systems. You can look at the power. If you, if I change this guy, for example, so I go 0.1, I change a set point. Yeah, it should still work. So the idea here is to show you that it's a bi-directional communication. So it's not just monitoring. It can send set points. It can send control. It might not sound a whole lot for a lot of people, but when you have a system that you're monitoring, it's very simple. You can put it together in a couple of days. But when you're trying to do the same thing and sending controls in a secure way, the complexity of the system temples, right? So basically, this would generate alarm. I would get an alarm on my cell phone. I get an email. I can acknowledge alarm here. Few other things just to give you a feel for it. So what you see here, all of you are going to say, well, there's nothing special about this. This is a typical monitoring system, right? And that's very correct. So this is where I want to look at, let's say, a gas well, AGA calculations. Now, here are a few reports, for example. I want to look at the report. So this is a gas well with a nice PDF report that it can send the email out. none of these are anything special when you work in an IoT world. So it's about monitoring, right? And it's about data analytics. It's about basically reporting. I'll show you a couple more, and then I'll move on to other stuff. So these are more advanced variance tracking. So what this does is, it's a lot of data processing happens in the back. It looks at hundreds of wells and look at the production yesterday and the day before, and it sorts it, and it just shows you the ones that it's lost production comparing the last 2 days. So a lot of analytics you can do, and a lot of reporting you can do. That's what basically from my perspective, that's what IoT for a lot of applications is. It's about collecting data, historicalizing it, doing analytics, generating reports, and when it gets more advanced, add AI and do all sorts of automated logic or running artificial intelligence on it, right? That's what IoT is. Okay, moving forward, I'll just show you the map part of it. Again, you guys have seen a lot of IoT systems that can do all this. So here is a map of different assets, and you can, from there, you can go and look at different information for each one of them. Now, what is special about what I've shown you here, this is the backbone of this system, is the same platform we built for a SCADA world, right? And this is very important for people who are building platforms or solutions for their customers. That where is the overlap between IoT and the SCADA, right? Because at the end of the day, SCADA was meant to be a monitoring control platform for industrial applications. But there were some challenges using it in a non-industrial environment, and the challenges were typically initial cost and learning how to use it and how to set it up. So the rest of my presentation, I'm going to focus on that part. Any questions so far before I go to the next stage? Okay, so if there is no question, so yes.
Quick question. So you've got a tool here that's collecting a lot of data, which is great. And from an AI machine learning perspective, you know, one thing SCADA does is generate a massive amount of data,
Right.
especially time series data. So, you know, can you let us know a little bit more about the underlying database? We heard you about it, but
Sure.
you know, and how robust that is, and
Sure.
how well you have to move that data into.
Right. So one of the challenges we faced, that was, I remember, 10 years ago, we had to bid on a project for a power company in Florida. They wanted 1,000 records a second continuous. That's 10 years ago, and it would have cost us $50,000 by the time. We couldn't do that with SQL Server and available servers at the time, right? Now, the same company is going to come and ask us for 100,000 records a second, right? The same problem, it's just scaled up. We saw this problem back then. We knew the conventional historian solutions can handle that kind of volume of data. Because the SCADA, like you said, generates a lot of data. Not just the SCADA, any IoT platform. If you're monitoring it really fast, it's a lot of data you're generating, right? So the platform that we developed, one of the very first things we did was we developed an integrated historian that you can push in as much data as you want. We're looking at on a single server, you can push in 30,000, 40,000 records a second. We're talking about billions of records a day, right? You need that when you're monitoring large number of devices and you need to collect large volume of data for analytics. Now, one of the challenges with that kind of scale of data is if you use conventional historians, okay, you've solved the problem of logging it. Now, every time you want to run an analytics, your system response time based on the technologies that are out there are going to be very slow. Let's say I want to look at all the samples for these points for 30 days. Now, you could be sitting there literally for 2 hours to query that data. We build a historian as part of this, that it solved that problem. So the way we have done it is, the way the system is logging the data is completely separate itself from the way you are collecting the data, like querying the data out of the database. These are technical challenges that we had to, and that's why it took us 15 years to develop this. We solved the technical problems that prevented SCADA solutions to be used in IoT world, right? Now, moving forward, what I showed you, just to give you a feel for it, these are the list of features we use. So if you look here, some of the instruments, the temperature, for example, with the color is LoRa instrument, the power data, and some other meters are Modbus. Actually, we have also DMP protocol there. There is a gateway that connects to the field devices, collect the data, and send it to a data hub. We use both MQTT and MQTT client and broker to collect the data from gateway to the hub. We perform all sorts of data conversion and processing, bring the data to a data hub. There is a whole bunch of logic to normalizing the data. The historian is collecting data, so some of the reporting. Most importantly, security. You just saw me logging in, user and password. Well, username and password is not going to cut it as a security. And that's one of the reasons a lot of large producers are very reluctant to use systems that are being built out there. You need a different level of security to meet IT corporate security requirements. And we build a platform to be able to meet that, right? Just to give you an example, most of the IoT solutions that are out there use a standard web browser. A lot of major producers do not allow you to use a standard web browser with Java applets, for example, or ActiveX. There are technical problems there that prevent you to do that, right? And there's alarms and configuration management. On the browser part, this is very important. There are fundamental, by design, web browsers are not secure. This is by design. This is not something bad about web browsers. And that's one of the reasons a lot of critical infrastructure monitoring control are not using web browsers. They're using applications to monitor. So some of you might not even care about that if you're not in the industrial end. For us, this was important because we saw a huge movement of IoT devices that are required to be monitored within producers' corporate networks. For example, a company goes by a solar farm and they want to monitor their solar farm data. While the solar company puts their own web browser and IoT solution that is not accessible from inside a corporate network. These are the technical problems that we try to solve. But anyway, these are the features we are using to create this data. And the fundamental question became, so where is the SCADA, where is the IoT? I built this table just to give you a feel for it. So what I have here is, on the left, you see IoT features or IoT vocabulary that is used for monitoring. On the right, you see similar functionality, but it's a SCADA vocabulary, right? So for example, just to give you an example, in IoT, you're concerned with cybersecurity. In a SCADA world, you're concerned with operation security. They're similar, but they're different. In IoT, you're monitoring sensors, and typically you're monitoring large number of devices that are very similar. So you come up with a solution that you can monitor 1,000 devices, 1,000 temperatures, or fleets. They're very similar. In a SCADA world, you're connecting to PLCs and RTUs and customized protection relays that every one of them has got different configurations, right? So I guess another one you mentioned, like for example, historian. The phrase big data historian is used. In a SCADA, every SCADA system has to have historian. But when you try to use a system that scales up to hundreds of thousands of devices or sensors or equipment that you're monitoring, you better be prepared to handle large volume data, right? Does this make sense? So a lot of you guys, you can relate to this, you understand this. I don't think, is there anybody with a SCADA background here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Am I in the wrong place? But here is what I'm trying to get at. To build a system that is so simple, just monitoring few points, you need to deal with these issues. And a lot of people who go and build these IoT solutions, they are, oh, I went way too far up. Sorry, guys. Spoiled it up for everybody. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of people will be dragged into handling these issues later. It's very easy to get a device to connect to one of the IoT hubs within hours. And a lot of you guys have done that. But when you try to provide a solution to a customer, you got to address all these issues, or you got to be able to address these issues, right? So we saw this problem, as I mentioned, in 2003. We saw the problem with data in the SCADA world. The SCADA systems could not handle the data and the challenges of IoT world. There was no mention of IoT back then. Until 2 years ago, I never heard of the word IoT. I had to get educated what IoT is and how I relate to it, right? So we wanted, in 2003, we decided we need a platform that can do this. It needs to be flexible, scalable, secure, industrial grade, sustainable, and supportable. What that means is something that we won't have a person in the basement put a few lines of code together and come up with a solution. You can't use that in an industrial environment. It needs to be fully designed, tested, verified, and predictable. And SCADA systems are notorious for not being IT friendly. There's a huge, because of the requirements of IT and requirements of a SCADA, it's been always a challenge to put a SCADA system within a corporate IT environment. And we wanted to address that, right? And we needed to get this data pushed to the business side. You guys might not realize it, but the main reason the whole technology of IoT has come to existence was the limitations of the SCADA systems. Companies needed to get the SCADA data pushed to the corporate side, and they couldn't because of the security issues. So the IoT technology was developed last 5 years, 10 years, to go directly connect the business side of the corporate to the field devices. That's what IoT is. You connect directly from a field device to your corporate data hub. Well, you're not even going to your corporate hub, you're going to a public domain data hubs, right? Now, our solution, we didn't realize it, but that's what happened. We developed EventAx, and we said, what if we combine all this together? Over the last 15 years, we started adding these features that was required both on the SCADA side and IoT side. So the platform is able to do all these functionalities that IoT guys need in IoT side and the SCADA guys need on the SCADA side, right? Now, what does that mean? That means that if you are an IoT person, you should be able to use this for monitoring application without knowing anything about the SCADA. And if you are an SCADA guy, don't know anything about IoT, you should be able to use this for SCADA applications without worrying about IoT. The best way I can describe this is everybody in this room use Excel, right? You don't need to know VB scripting to use Excel. You don't need to know any formulas, using formulas in Excel. You can just put your numbers and manually add the cells together, just to do a sum. But some of you have seen what some of the people been able to do with Excel, right? It's very, very scalable. I built a whole platform of monitoring 3,000 projects for EventAx a few years ago using Excel, with 200 people simultaneously connecting to the system. Believe me well, it's hard to believe me on this, but 200 people using Excel monitoring 3,000 projects, 11 different operations. So you could do a lot with Excel, but you don't need to know anything about those complex features of Excel in order to use Excel. That's what we wanted to do. So the result is basically when we put our software on an industrial computer, we can connect to anything. We can connect to any field devices. We can connect to other data hubs. We can connect to other platforms. We can connect to the business applications. Now, if you use the same platform as a data hub, now you can connect to whatever the corporate has, as whether it's the SCADA or IoT, bring it into one place, right? Now, there is one problem here. You saw this on my on this page, not this page, here. I put this at the very bottom in red. One of the biggest challenges with IoT versus the SCADA is the expertise of people who are using these technologies. You don't need to know anything about the SCADA in order to build a monitoring platform, right? Absolutely nothing. You can just learn online and be able to build a few web pages and applications. Keep clicking on these mouse. All you need to know is basic fundamentals of software development, right? Now, when you're working on the SCADA side, your background needs to be on instrumentation and automation and electrical. You got to connect to field devices in an industrial environment. Now, a lot of people here don't have a strong software background. And a lot of software people don't have this experience. Now, this was one of the challenges of not being able to use the SCADA platforms in a corporate environment for IoT applications. Now, the last 5 years, we have seen a shift that IT is got much bigger control over the corporate infrastructure, much bigger funding and budget. So they have gradually taken over the monitoring applications, let's say. And they're really pushing their way to take over the OT part, right? The challenge is, if you don't have these expertise working together, you won't be able to do that. Okay? So that's coming to the end of my presentation. So this is the problem. Now, if I put a platform that can work on both ends, so this is what we are discovering. In order for these two groups of people, expertise, work together, they need something that they need a common denominator, basically. Because if you start putting the SCADA solution and force IT guys use it, they won't use it. We have tried that for the last 10, 15 years. And we have seen now when IT departments trying to push IoT solutions into highly, critical applications, IoT will not accept it. You need a solution that can allow both ends to use it. Basically, it becomes your common language, right? And that's what we are finding ourselves after 15 years of development, that's what it has given us. Now, what this translates to, this is the last slide, corporates right now at the point that they have to connect to this remote IoT cloud solution from this vendor and this IoT solution from this vendor, and they need to bring all this data together. If they don't do that, you will go to control rooms and you will see about 30 different monitors, each one of them connected to a different platform supplied by different vendors. And it's impossible for producers or end users to be able to monitor their system by monitoring 50 different platforms. Every platform requires expertise. It requires people who know how to update it, and it requires a certain level of integration. It's turning to a nightmare. So every IoT solution that we are coming up with, if it cannot integrate with other solutions, it works very well on its own, but it's one more monitor in a control room. So what we are saying is you can use one platform to monitor all of them. At least you can use a platform that connects to all these third-party vertical solutions and integrate the data together. The result of that, I guess the other part of it is the savings on when you use a platform that you're using within your corporate. You're going to be dealing with the security because you're going to be in control of what comes in, what goes out. And you're not going to be paying for per message data collection. You try to monitor thousands of millions of these points every second or every 5 seconds, your subscriptions are going to skyrocket. Now, these are some of the advantages that we have seen. The other thing we have noticed is some of the solutions that's coming out require software development. Somebody come up with a solution that, okay, here I'm monitoring this temperature. Now, if you go conventional or the new model of IoT solutions, everything is a code. And somebody got to manage these codes. And companies are beginning to realize they don't want to be in the business of code management. They don't have control over Mr. X who has developed this vertical solution. What's his coding skills level is? How consistent is this solution? How well is it going to work? How are we going to manage it? This guy moves on. Who's going to inherit this solution? So we have added all those by putting it in a platform that it's a lot less coding and it's more configuration levels. This allows IT to standardize their tools, the expertise required. Now, if you use one language for both IT and OT, and now you can develop a common expertise that works. Now OT and IT can actually communicate and plan for their security and upgrades and all that. And administration, and I guess a couple of other things. So this gives you an idea of what we have done. What we discovered was that we spent 15 years developing a platform that is actually end up being the bridge that was required from a SCADA to IoT side, and you can use it for both ends. Good, I'm done here. I'll be available if you've got any question you want to talk to me. If I got busy and hard to get a hold of me, I'll leave my business cards here beside my computer. Feel free to take it and we can chat later. I try to avoid making it a big sales pitch. I hope I achieved that.
Can you give Matt a hand, please? That's great. Does anybody have any questions? We're not going to let him run away too quickly. Does anybody have questions for Matt, either locally or remotely? Yes.
I got a question here. I don't know the answer to this, but when you usually talk about role certification of devices for safety integrity.
Okay.
How does that evolve in the IoT landscape, proliferation of IoT in terms of certifying systems for high safety applications?
Okay. Short answer is everybody is doing their own thing. That's a short answer. There are standards beginning to pop out, but none of these standards have become a requirement by vendors. So usually this type of standards become popular because bigger players start using them and encouraging other companies to use. There are standard organizations like ISA, IEEE, IEC that they still haven't figured out how to deal with this whole IoT. IoT has come very fast, very quick, and it will take years. The only thing that is really enforcing some of these standards are the fear of losing customers that companies are trying. Like, for example, 2 years ago, the biggest issue was security with IoT. And we are beginning to see that people start talking about security, but when it comes to actual implementation, very little you'll see. And don't be fooled by the fact that you enter a username and password, so it must be secure. It's a whole different issue what's happening in the back. And I guess a lot of people in this room are coming from business background. You're relying on technical people to help you with that. But generally, that's been our experience. This website that we built here, this was one of the key issues for us. Are we going to be able to use this and be able to claim that it's truly secure so companies can use it? And it took us quite a bit of effort that we had to go through. You saw one of the slides I had, web page. I had listed number of technologies such as AJAX, ASP. 99% of the IoT solutions don't use any of those, right? Okay, any other question? Good? Thank you.